So the first thing we have to talk about is Ja Morant, how well he's playing, his contract. So, for his career, averaging 20 points a game, 7 assists, missed a lot of time, okay? That's the problem with Ja. He's playing right now. The Grizzlies have not yet played today. I forget who they're playing today. But Ja, the other night, had, I think, a 20-point game. I think he shot 25% from three. And I talked about it on the Patreon. It's too early to plug the Patreon. I'll wait. But he gave an interview, did his post-game interview, and seemed kind of fine. Granted, this is coming off a win against the Dallas Mavericks. And I talk about that. Not a great team. But when you're coming off a win and you're doing an interview, there's no way he's not going to somewhat be positive. The tone is positive. I think Ja is getting traded, is what I'm trying to say. I think he still needs to be traded because he's still salty, he's still mad, he's still the rotten apple poisoning the bunch. A rotten apple spoils the whole bunch. And it's happening. Jaren Jackson Jr. doesn't seem too happy. They were lucky that they played the Mavericks because I personally think the Mavericks are trash. And I watched them play the Wizards last night, and I wanted the Wizards to beat them so bad to validate my point from the Patreon, but the Wizards are worse. The problem with the Wizards is they're used to losing. And I think that's what happened in that game. I call them the losers. The Washington losers, they knew they were about to win. I think they had the momentum the whole game. The Mavs came back. And I don't think they wanted to win. I think they were like, whoa, we can lose. The Mavericks, they should win this. They have more at stake. Let's take the L. I really think that. So, point being, the Memphis Grizzlies played a really bad team, so I think people sort of came around to thinking, well, maybe Ja's going to turn it around there. No. He was being really lazy out there. 20 points. It's not going to win you games against real teams. So, he's missed a lot of time, and that's the problem that you have with Ja Morant. That is the real... First, I guess, I think the injury history is the worst part. And then I think the bad attitude is the second worst part. The injury history is the most concerning thing to me. He just 50 games last year, 9 games the year before. Granted, that was a suspension year. 61 games, still won a qualified for an All-NBA team. I believe that was the year that he got second team All-NBA. And then 57 the year before. Might have been a shortened COVID year. I don't remember. So he just doesn't play enough games to really make him that tempting on the trade market. His contract this year is 39, and he has 2 more years left. 42 and 44 million. It's not an insane contract. It's a, what do you call it? A rookie supermax extension. Fun max, as Windhorse calls it. So there are going to be teams that are calling, I'm sure. There's a lot of teams. I know the Kings called, the Minnesota Timberwolves called. So maybe they're next. Yes, I added this last minute. So I have 11 different teams. This is the one I added last minute because the breaking news. Minnesota Timberwolves are interested in one Ja Morant, please. Which I think Anthony Edwards and Ja Morant is a crazy pairing. They're bad boys. They're the bad boys of the league. They're a little bit troublemakers. But they're the most fun. They're the personalities everyone likes. I'd like them both on this team, but they're both a little bit hard to control. They're both wild cards. Ja way more than Anthony Edwards, but love them both. And I think Minnesota would be America's team. I think everyone would love that team. Ja Morant and Anthony Edwards together would be a funny duo. So, what trade do they come up with? All right, they would have to get rid of Jew. I think this would throw off the vibes. I think that team really likes Jew. The real thing they'd have to do is get off Mike Conley. This would be a let's get off Mike Conley play. That's what this is right here. It's Mike Conley cannot be our starting point guard anymore. We sort of realized that last season, but this season it has become quite evident that this man can't do his job anymore. So you'd have to send out Mike Conley's $10 million contract and Ju's $30 million contract. I think Julius Randle might be okay with that. I mean, he's not going to be happy. He likes Minnesota. From what I understand, he was dying to sign there. He really enjoyed his time there. His family's really happy there. So I'd hate to see it because I like Julius Randle. Hate to have his family move. I know. It seems like NBA players hate moving more than us brokies do, which I find kind of strange. They got bigger houses. It's more inconvenient. So moving Ja Morant, what's in it for the Grizzlies though? They're not going to be that hyped to get Mike Conley back. And they might be a little bit hyped. That might actually be a big selling point, is saying, hey, you get your boy Mike Conley back, grit and grind, baby. They might, they might get off on that. You might be able to slide that in. And then Julius Randle, you might be able to sell him on Julius Randle. They already have a power forward, but hey, he's a good player. The problem is Minnesota doesn't have that much to trade. You're giving them second round picks, other people's second round picks. They gave away too many first round picks. I think when I made this in the trade machine, I don't think they had any first round picks to trade. So that's the real problem if you're Minnesota. I'm sure they called about Ja Morant, but they would have to give up one of my alternates, which would be a Naz Reid DiVincenzo combo. But even then, I don't think it gets it done. Some people were saying Rudy Gobert, like a straight up Ja for Rudy Gobert trade. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves need his big ass, though. As much as I'm not a big Rudy Gobert fan, Naz Reid cannot be your starting center. I love him. He's great, but he's not a trad center. He's not going to do it for you. You need rebounding, you need rim protection, and that's not Naz Reid. A lot of skills, large skill set. That ain't what he does. Now, could the Suns... All right, so the Suns would give up Jalen Green, who just tore his hamstring again. So this trade might be moot. You make a slideshow. You make a Google Slides, and then shit happens, man. And it just ruins your whole slideshow. Because Jalen Green is not getting traded now, You get Jalen Green because you're like, all right, we'll bring him in. He's not really a point guard. He's a shooting guard. We'll bring in Royce O'Neal. He's shooting really well. We'll get a first-round pick, which Washington has swap rights for. Don't love it. And a 2028 first-round pick with a ton of swap rights on it. The Suns don't have much to trade either. It would have came down to, can you really sell Jalen Green? And he can now. He's injured. He was hard to sell anyway. But Grayson Allen is shooting really well. And Royce O'Neal is shooting really well. So maybe... No, you can't. I don't care how well Grayson Allen is shooting, how well Royce O'Neal is shooting. You're not getting Ja Morant back. Or are you? I'm starting to talk myself into it. The problem is the Grizzlies are in a desperate situation. They have to get rid of Ja. You can't do this. You can't do this Jimmy Butler-esque, I've lost my joy, I'm going to phone it in. You got to win games. If you're the Grizzlies and you're saying, we're not going to tank, we're actually trying to be good, then you got to make a move quick. Now, the Pelicans, I love this. I love these trades. There's another guy like this. I like these one-for-ones. Zion and Ja are on the exact same contract, same amount of money. You could just straight up give them each other's jerseys and you got a deal, my friend. Both these guys have had their issues. And I don't think either one... I think if you talk to other people, you're going to get a mixed bag. If you say, Ja Morant trade, Zion for Ja trade, who gets extra compensation besides the player? Some people are going to say, oh, the Grizzlies got to get more for taking on Zion. And then people are going to say, oh, the Pelicans need more if they're going to be trading away Zion. They are, aren't they? So what do you say? I think if you get that, this is a swap jerseys trade. And I think it could work. Now, Trey Murphy's not shooting really well. He's this like coveted player that everyone talks about. But right now, stock's low. Stock's pretty low on Trey Murphy. So I don't think that's going to happen for Ja Morant. Even though the stock is low, I think the Pelicans still believe that he's worth more to the Pelicans than anyone else right now. I think you might be able to throw him into a deal and get Ja Morant for him for very little coming back to you if he was playing well. But his shooting percentage isn't great. The whole team's not playing well. All right, say goodbye. All right. She's, man, in her old age, she's become quite docile. The Mavs, Clay's been playing really bad. Okay. So why is his name in red? Because this is a contract you don't want to take on. So this would be in the case that the Grizzlies are saying, we'll see how it goes, but this is sort of a tank. All right. So the Grizzlies would get back Klay Thompson, sort of like they did KCP. They said, hey, he's not playing really well right now, but there was a time where he could shoot the 3-ball. And maybe it's you. Maybe it's your team. Your team sucks, and the Dallas Mavericks made Klay bad, so maybe he comes here. They thought that with the Orlando Magic and KCP. They said, well, maybe Orlando, something's in the air down there and makes people not be able to shoot threes. He'll come to our org, and he'll be as good as Desmond Bane. Not the case. So you're going to take on... PJ Washington's a good player. And you get Caleb Martin, a contract. You get a 2026 first-round pick, and then you get that 2029 first-round pick via the Los Angeles Lakers that you got in the Luka trade. So you get 3 first-round picks if you're the Grizzlies, but you're going to take on Klay's contract, and the Mavs get Ja Morant. Alternatively, though, the Mavs do need a point guard, and D'Angelo Russell, and I'll stand by this, I'm not saying he's not good, but he's a guy you're going to be a little devastated if you see him on your roster, especially if you look at the depth chart and he's your starting point guard. You're going to say, this isn't good. He's on a $5.6 million contract, but the thing is, Kyrie doesn't have a no trade clause. Granted, a lot of these guys that signed extensions and signed in the offseason, this has to be done in December. So these trades can't work right now. A lot of these guys that did sign these contracts, and I know I said they need to move Ja quick, they're going to have to wait until December whatever, which sort of puts a halt on things if you're trying to get rid of them quickly. But we got to talk about something. So 3 first-round picks for Ja Morant. What do you think? Would you do it? I don't think you would. The Hornets, another one. Now, I think the Hornets would have to give the Grizzlies their 2027 first-round pick in order to get Ja Morant. I think you want Ja Morant more than you want LaMelo Ball. I think so. Right? This isn't like Zion. I think those guys are pretty equal, but I'm going to say Ja Morant, I'm going to put some respect on his name and say, hey, you're not going to get Ja Morant for LaMelo Ball. You're going to have to throw in that first-round pick. Because, all 3 of these guys, LaMelo, Zion, and Ja, they all are guys who they have talent, but you just can't count on them. They're just not dependable. They're sort of guys that you might as well trade. They're kind of fun. You're like, I kind of gave up on them already. They're kind of just, we'll see what happens. So if you trade them and it doesn't work out, you're kind of like, I don't really care. They weren't really doing anything for me anyway, but breaking my heart. So I think those teams should be able to give their lawyers some billing hours and write up trade proposals and make them happen. Just for fun, because we're bored of these teams. The Raps. Now, Immanuel Quickley, he's definitely on, hate to say it, one of the worst contracts in the NBA. We all know it's true. Raps fans, you hate it. You knew the moment that extension was signed that it was going to be a big regret. I was watching Raptors Sixers last night. The problem with Immanuel Quickley is you watch him and you think, man, it's like a Rajon Rondo, not on defense, but man, it's a Rajon Rondo type, man. This guy's got ball skill. But then he puts up a shot and it's like, oh, but the shots he shoots don't go in. They just sort of brick. He doesn't have the ability to put the ball in the basket, which if you're trying to win games, you're going to need a guy that can do that. So you're paying him 32. The contract's huge. You're just like, man, you look so good out there, but you got to be net. Get the ball. So I can understand. I know Skeets on No Dunks is not an Immanuel Quickley fan, and nor am I. So what are the Raptors going to say to the Grizzlies to convince them to take Immanuel Quickley? Say, hey, you need a point guard? We got this guy. And as soon as he can get an inch or two more accurate on his shot, he's going to be decent. He's potentially Rajon Rondo quality on offense, not defense. So can you convince the Raptors? You throw in Ochai Agbaji, who is good. I think that's actually a particularly good contract. At least last year, he had really great stats. And then you throw in a first-round pick in 2 seconds for Ja Morant. What do you say? What do you say, Grizz? I think this could happen. I think this could happen because I think the Grizzlies are sort of teetering on the point of saying, maybe we tank. Maybe we tank and we see what's up with Immanuel Quickley. I think that's sort of the direction you go, is you say, you know what? We'll take the risk. If we're not good this season, I don't care. We don't even care. Just let's do it. Let's do it. At the very worst, we're a bad team. We get a first-round pick in 2 seconds from the Raptors, and the Raptors, they'll probably suck too with Ja Morant. He'll get hurt. We'll get a good pick. I think this could get done. Or you could do an RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram. I think, I don't know. Those are two players. I like RJ more than I like Brandon Ingram. I think Brandon Ingram's a bit of a dinosaur in that his playing style is extinct. That's just me. So, $36 million, not $36. He's not getting paid $36 this year. So, now I bet y'all didn't expect this. Here's the thing. I think the real trade should have Peyton Pritchard in it. Because I was watching the Celtics. Again, talked about this on the Patreon. That's where I'm going to put me doing the podcast. I talked about Pritchard. He had a lot of points the other night when they were playing the Magic. But watching him play, I noticed something. Doesn't have point guard skills. He does not have the ability to hold on to the ball for long periods of time and set up the offense on a team that is going to really compete. He is not a starting point guard. Ja Morant, on the other hand, is. So I think if you upgrade that position, the Grizzlies aren't going to buy it on Anthony Simons, I don't think. I got him in here. That's why if the contract's in red, if the player's name is in red, that means negative asset. It's a dirty contract. It's like, hey, you're doing us a solid by getting rid of it. Not saying Anthony Simons is bad, just saying he's overpaid. You get Sam Hauser. Might be a lot of these Boston Celtics guys, especially Derek White, not shooting well at all. Shooting brutally. I think Derek White really believed he was going to be an all-star this season. I think coming in, I think even Missoula probably told him, like, hey, it's kind of your season to shine. It's you and Jaylen Brown out here. So put him up. Let's get you on an all-star team. And he's putting him up. And, bruh, I think he went like 1 for 8 the other night. I do admire guys that just keep shooting. They don't get insecure. They just say, I believe I'm good at threes. I know I haven't made one all night, but 20 minutes ago in warm-ups, I made one. So I'm going to keep shooting. I admire it. But could you take on Anthony Simons, you take Sam Hauser, you take on Xavier Tillman, send him back to Memphis. Get 2027 first round pick, a 2032 first round pick, pretty distant future. What do you say? I don't know. You're getting decent players back. Just throw away the season, Grizzlies, is what I'm saying. Get back some decent players and throw away your season. Or don't. Maybe the guys that you get back are good enough to get you into the play-in. These are just thoughts I'm having. So I think the Celtics are absolutely a plausible option. So now, this was the one I talked about last week. I don't remember did I talk about it on this or did I talk about it on the Patreon? Beats me. Harden for Morant. I think it's kind of perfect. So here's the only problem. So I think the Grizzlies would have to get back a first round pick in 2031, which the Clippers do have available to them to trade. I think it's their one first rounder they have that isn't swapped with OKC. So I think the Grizzlies should do this because you're taking the problem with Ja. I've said this before, and I apologize if I said it last week, but the problem with Ja is he's brittle. He's an old man. So you may say, James Harden, he's old. He's an old player. Ja Morant's got youth. But when you think about it, it's like, well, what is youth? Youth is health. James Harden is way more consistent than Ja Morant. For all intents and purposes, James Harden is a young man, and Ja Morant is an old man. So, granted, you do get the 2 extra years of Ja Morant, and then next year James Harden has a player option, so he might not even be on your team next year, or you're going to have to negotiate another contract extension for James Harden, which is going to be annoying. But you get a first-round pick out of it, so you say, even if James Harden walks, we're still getting a first-round pick out of this thing. And for the year, we're getting, dare I say, a better point guard, a more of a point guard's point guard, and a guy that we probably is just going to play at least 65 games, who just sort of does it basically every season. So in my head, if I'm the Grizzlies, I'm saying I get a first round pick out of this and I get consistency. Also, I don't want Ja Morant. I don't want to work with Ja Morant anymore. I don't like the vibe. Now, could you throw together a John Collins, Bogdanovich thing? Again, these are slop. It goes back to do you want Anthony Simons? Do you want Sam Hauser? Do you want these, maybe Xavier? Do you want these guys that, hey, maybe it'll work out. Maybe we'll send them to you. You get a bunch of first round picks. You get picks for the future. And you got guys that aren't terrible. You got guys that are somewhat healthy. Maybe you can pull some together for this season. But I think if you did this, I think the Grizzlies are going to get James Harden and say, this is pretty awesome. We're excited about James Harden here in Memphis. Now we're talking fun trades. Jerami Grant, who's looking kind of nice as a 6-man. Obviously, he's not a 6-man. He's not starting, which it's one of those things. He's going to get like 6-man of the year because he's not starting, but he's getting starter minutes. I don't know what's going on. But Jerami Grant, stock's high. Stock is high on him right now. I still have him as a negative contract, but you say, you know what? Grizzlies, we got your point guard of the future. Scoot Henderson. Send him over. He's yours. He's been looking good. And you know what? For taking on a Jerami Grant contract, you get a 2nd-round pick via Minnesota, a 1st-round pick, and you get Milwaukee's swap rights. I mean, they're better than us, so it doesn't really matter. You get a 2nd-round pick via Sac, which is going to be pretty close to a 1st-round pick. And you get a 2030 1st-round pick and another Milwaukee swap rights. Who knows? Maybe in 2030, Milwaukee will be the worst team in the league. So I think you could do this because the Trailblazers, then you'd have, but the problem is you would have Drew there too. So you'd have Drew and Ja. And I think I did hear someone else bring up this trade, and someone was saying Drew would be the mentor for Ja. I'm like, okay, sure. At this point, Ja Morant is a grown man. He is a full-grown man. He is not in the Big Brothers program. He is not a little. He's making his own choices, positive influences. Probably won't have much effect on him. He's a grown-ass man. But I like the trade. And Scoot gets out of Portland. And maybe something happens if he goes to Memphis. Scottie Pippen Jr. is out. Maybe Scoot Henderson gets that starting job full time. I don't know. I don't think this is a good enough trade. It's just not. I should have done a trade with Drew. This should have been my alternate for the Portland Trailblazers. If they sent Drew, I like that so much better. I'm embarrassed of this slide. I made a bad slide when a good slide was right in front of me. Drew Holiday, who I believe his contract is like $36 million. I think Drew Holiday is sort of a quintessential Grizzly too. I don't hate this trade, but I think a Drew Holiday trade might have been better. Just saying. Just correcting myself. My poor slide. Now, Simone Fontecchio is playing well. Nikola Jović is fine. I'll be honest. I think from what you hear from the reporters of the world that the Miami Heat were leaning fully into Nikola Jović, but watched a couple games and no. Somebody's lying to you. That's not true. All right? So Andrew Wiggins is borderline. I should have had his contract in red. If you could get the Grizzlies to take on, again, this is another, do you want the poo-poo platter with a couple draft assets for Ja, which I think is what this is all going to end up being. It's going to be, here's our poo-poo platter of decent players, and here's a couple draft assets. You're taking this deal because you can't have Ja on your team anymore. He's negative. He's stinking up the joint. So maybe you could do Tyler Hero. I think that's a little more enticing for the Grizzlies. You could say, again, you need a point guard. Again, you could say Tyler Hero can be your Desmond Bane replacement. Put Davion Mitchell and Tyler Hero together. What about that? I think the Grizzlies would have to give up something for that. The trade would work. I think the salaries would match. But if you did Davion Mitchell and Tyler Hero for Ja Morant, I think the Heat would have to throw in something. Or excuse me, the Grizzlies would have to throw in something. The Grizzlies would have to say, here's Ja Morant and just a little bit of cinnamon twists. Maybe 2 second-round picks. Maybe a little bit, maybe a soft serve cone for your trouble. Maybe a Gigi Jackson, who is the soft serve cone, the ice cream machine product of the NBA. Now, the Sacramento Kings, which is sort of seeming like the place he's most likely to go. Is it the best fit? No, I don't know. Does anyone fit well in Sacramento? No disrespect. I ain't trying to disrespect you, but it doesn't really seem like you could give Sacramento any player that would fix the chemistry. Okay. But they're horny for Ja. That's the word that is going around. So you can give them Zach LaVine, who I think has 2 more years left on that contract. The guy who's he is the main course of the poo-poo platter. He is the dumpling in the poo-poo platter. So, he's the spring roll of the poo-poo platter. What's the main item on a poo-poo platter? Probably a spring roll, right? Or maybe a hibachi thing, a skewer. So you give him Zach LaVine, Dario Šarić, it doesn't matter, and a 2026 first round, a 2028 first round. So 2 first round picks that are Kings first round picks. If I'm the Kings and I'm trying to sell the Grizzlies on Zach LaVine and 2 of my first round picks, if I'm the GM of the Kings, so I forget his name, I say to the Grizzlies, hey, keep in mind, we suck. 2026, that's next year. Our team's not doing pretty well. 2028, you bet we'll suck again. These are going to be great picks. Come on, we're the fucking Kings. Wouldn't that be funny? You call the Grizzlies and say, dude, we suck. I have no idea what I'm doing here. Doug Christie, worst coach in the league. We're going to be bad. It's a great deal. I would say that. I would just say that if I was the Kings owner, even if I didn't mean it, obviously. But you give up Brandon Clarke, who's just injured all the time, so whatever. You get Brandon Clarke, John Morant. Alternatively, I think you might be able to do DeRozan and Schroeder, which I think is no, don't do that. That would be incredible for the Grizzlies, because I think DeRozan is good and he's dependable, and Schroeder is one of my favorite players. If that was the deal, I would say, Kings, come on. I knew you were bad, but you are taking it to another level. You saw some of the Pelicans moves and you said, hold my beer. Hold my vodka Red Bull, man. I'm about to make a poor decision. So, I believe those are all my trades. That's it. So, there is a Patreon. I plugged it somewhere in there. But this week I talked about a lot of things. I talked about Miles Turner when he came back to the Pacers and they booed him. I talk about that a bit. And then I talk about what his reaction, saying, all I did for you Pacers fan, this is how you repay me. Talk about that. And then I talk about Jaylen Brown's hairline for the second time. But a lot more stuff. I also go back and I talk about how the Bulls treated the widow, Thelma Krause. Tragic. Thanks for being here. Be good to your mammies. Like the video and subscribe to the show.